Welcome, everyone, to this week of my podcast show, Surviving Your Journey Toward Success. I'm Nichel Anderson, your host for this week, which will be October the 29th for episode 39, entitled How to Find the Joy Within. All right, thank you everyone for joining me today. Let's go ahead and get started with this week for my season 2, 2018-2019 return of my podcast show. So let me go ahead and get started with in this day. I am thankful to the prime creator of all things that I give thanks for this blessing and opportunity that I will use it for the greater good. So welcome my survivors of the journey to my podcast that aims to inspire and motivate you to continue to have joy, peace of mind, and for your sustained success. So let's go ahead and get started with this episode 39 entitled How to Find the Joy Within. So number one, I just want to kind of start off by saying, actually I want to start off by naming three things before I get into my important points and my wisdom point. Is that the first thing when you want to find the joy within is you got to understand you need to accept that you deserve it. You deserve joy, because deserving, once you thinking that you deserve it, it builds up you to also evaluate your self-worth. Okay, and your self-worth is my first episode theme, defining your worth, because that ties into your self-esteem. And when you have low self-esteem, we all know where that leads. And so there's no joy inside your heart. There's no joyfulness, and you feel restricted in accomplishing anything in your life, and you're not moving forward. All right. So number two, I want to hone on is believing any other existence that what we see could change. So you got to start believing that something else is more better on the other side of the horizon. That's number two. And number three, how you can find the joy within that I want you to take away from this podcast as we're about to start it, is that the patterns and behavior that prevents our joy. Okay, so that means that you have to start focusing on making the choices that will bring you forward, making the choices that will eliminate the toxicity in your life and bring in the positivity. And to do that, you have to monitor your behavior, and you have to see the patterns that will continue to repeat itself, and you are getting the same results on the physical plane. So I'm going to talk about the spiritual plane and the physical plane. I'm going to keep it in a way that I'm acknowledging that I have listeners, different parts of the world. Heck, I can say it, all over the world. Maybe not on every single continent, every single city or province, but I got enough in a lot of different countries when I'm looking at my stats. And heck, I'm happy about it. Okay. But I know that the listeners could be coming from a different belief system. I'm not finna preach this or that. I'm just gonna present my episode, this podcast, in a way to help motivate you to put another plate on the table of what I think that could help to the discussion and finding that joy, because I think everybody wants it, right? Everybody needs it. It's a part of the nurturing that I always say in my podcast, that everybody, as we as humans, need some nourishment. Okay, so let's go ahead and identify this path on our life journey that impacts your personal and your career life. So my important point starting off into my podcast, that we are our worst critics, because our minds never stop in repeating words we hear and see, especially the bad ones that persist in preventing you and meeting your joyfulness, leading to a no mental peace existence. So it's time to move forward in knowing and what you do has a vast importance to your joy within. There is hope. There is hope. So let me move on to my wisdom point. And that is, if you don't believe in yourself, then no one else will. I know we heard that before, but we got to repeat it. We got to hear it again. If you don't believe in yourself, then no one else will. Okay. So the only person that matters in the first step forward is yourself. You. Once you assess this wisdom deep and within, you believe it, you do things that reinforce it, okay, then you can move forward into the collective group that empowers the circle of life, and that entrines into your purpose. So why is this so? Where joy is happiness, joyfulness is happiness that serves to move you forward in creating, supporting, and more importantly, why you are here to live your life. To not seek joy leads you to negative things, negative deeds, negative people that restrict your growth. And it in turns reduce your happiness. That is basically your joy. So who are we talking about? We're talking about the ones that have Mr. Fear sitting right at the table all the time. And you want to know who was Mr. Fear? If you're new to my podcast, I tweet about him a lot. I came up with them, I think, last year when I just started posting things of how I felt, how I view life, and how I view the struggles that we go through and try to motivate someone else. Mr. Fear, I actually did a podcast on him. It was episode 37. It was published this month, October the 15th, about 2 weeks ago. So you can check that out. I talk about him and his partners. I'm going to do another podcast about Mr. Fear because he's key, right? And he's the one that sits at the table right there with you, telling you, this and that and this and that. It's just a whole bunch of lies, right? That you are worthless, that why even try, that you don't deserve to have joy or mental peace, or you can't possibly achieve anything without that person. And sometimes it comes through people that you know and that you care about and that you love and that you admire. They're telling you, which basically to me is a lie, or set up you to believe on certain conditions. If you do this and do that, then it will happen. So then you can reach your joy. So we have to understand that we found this experiences of people saying those things to us in our personal relationship as well as our work life, when toxicity is brewing like a hot bad pot of coffee, you hear me, and we continue to believe it. And those that just don't believe in themselves, that's who I'm talking about, because they haven't received the things or experiences in life. So we need a wake-up call that some things or experiences you want just might not happen this time around. So be it. Get and enjoy what you do or will get, meaning acceptance. You got to accept the rest that you didn't get. So what? So be it, and move on. Joyfulness will then enter your heart and your mind, right? That's how you really find the joy in your heart, inside, within. So what happens when we don't seek the joy within? Well, we lose hope. When we lose hope, we definitely don't believe or want to know anything that will help us to move forward, or listen to anyone that's trying to tell us to move forward. Okay, so anyone that tries to show them this or that in a good effort, in a good way, they restrict it, because they tie more to Mr. Fear and his gang, right? His comrades and his friends of nowhere get into the driver's seat of your life and keep on moving, right? And they surround you by negative environment that you are confused, you're always in a dilemma, you second guess. That's not having mental peace. That's definitely not joy, right? So a not happy person is a sad person. And over time is constantly on the edge, constantly frantic, use other things to subdue the pain that they feel. So who really wants to live like that? Who really want to live like that? They really don't, right? But yet there are people that have chosen not to seek what needs to be done to find the joy, the joyfulness, and the mental peace, and do the necessary work. It's work to be done. So what are the strategies to succeed? Okay, number one, how to get the joy within. You have to become self-assertive in a sense of doing the work to do the self-inventory, right? What is anchoring your self-beliefs of who you are, to what you have done that you feel either good or bad about. If you feel bad about, that's something that needs to come on the top of your list to address it, right? Could it be someone in your life that actually is the cause that it is time to let that person go, or at least take the steps to distance yourself and then measure your joyfulness after that? Now, I know that I can share this right here. I can share an example for me over time. When I did I wasn't calling it what I'm calling it now, do the self-inventory, but I basically was, because I didn't have the joy that I should, because the joyfulness that I should have received at the time of my life, because I'm looking at this is okay, this is fine, this is looking at everything, but it was just that one person that around is always caused the negativity, or in a sense caused the disturbance of my mental peace, and the joy was reduced. The joyfulness in my heart was reduced because I constantly had to try to balance out something that no longer serves to move forward. And that's what I'm talking about, right? You got to, if it's somebody, you got to take the steps to eventually move from that. And I'm telling you, once you do it, whew, the freedom is nothing like, a good friend of mine had said a couple of weeks ago, it's nothing like mental peace. And that's what I was telling them. Mental peace is the key, because mental peace is the cousin, it's the marriage, they're like husband and wives. They just joy, mental peace, joyfulness and mental peace comes together as a union, and that's what you have to seek. And you have to make those hard choices, and you have to consistently do it to move forward. Okay, number two, your strategy to succeed is to seek, to get, and to sustain inner joy is a divine gift, because you can't purchase it, for it is given on the spiritual plane. Okay, things that it's something that you feel but you don't see. When I'm talking about the spiritual plane, right? It's just evolves on the physical plane and places, things, and people. So you got to get centered, meditate, pray. It's a plateau of freeing the disturbance around you to get into touch with you doing the self inventory that I mentioned in your strategy to succeed. Number one, to get in tune with the room of Mother Earth. All right. You got to be able to get in tune, to take your time to see and check off the areas that you no longer need or you're willing to give up to get the happiness. I'm telling you, to invest in your joyfulness of your life, to invest in your mental peace is going to be the best decision you make in your life, because it's like flourish of seeds that flow into your family, to flow into your career, to flow into you, to what you're good at, what you're talent with. Everybody has a talent, right? Everybody has a talent. You can excel in it when you're not suffering from something that is basically tied to your level of happiness, that's tied to your joy within. All right. The physical plane with things that you acquire is on the outside. Today I'm talking about the inside. And to deal with the inside, you got to do the necessary work of what I just shared with you, with your strategies of what to do, your blueprint, step 1 and step 2. Step 3 is the reconciliation. Once you do these 2 steps that I just mentioned, it is time for a review of reconciliation. What works? What did you found out? Okay, what did you find out? Was there still or unknown EP? And I call that basically old MP, which is just means old emotional pain. That's what I started tweeting about last year. It became one of my popular treats, as well as my popular podcast. It's podcast episode 8 and episode 9 for my season 1 of my podcast show here, Surviving Your Journey Towards Success. I talk about old emotional pain. Please go check that out. And if you like it, send it to somebody. Okay, open up someone's mind to see it in a different way, and so they can get their healing, so they can find their joy and their mental peace by doing what they need to do. So recommend that podcast episode 8 and episode 9. And I just happened just to kind of touch on that, to kind of check iTunes. I haven't been on iTunes in a while to check my stats, but I have, and I was just so, I don't know, I was so ecstatic to know that people were tuning into it. It became very popular, and they actually said that too. It was trending very well. See what I'm saying? So when you find your joy, you end up finding your purpose, and you end up finding your purpose, you end up being in the right spot to motivate somebody else, and that's going to give you some happiness inside. Okay, so basically you need to identify 2 in this step 3 of your strategy to succeed. Reconciliation is a way that you identify if you still have any unknown EP, old emotional pain. And again, check out my previous episode 8 and 9 to get more information on that has been brewing in the corners of your mind, where you got to sweep that up and out of your life, which can take time, like tar. Okay, so the lesson today for you to take away is to start clearing the clutter of inner self to get to the joyfulness. All right, your task to dusk to dawn will be one. Pretty much you're going to measure your good deeds versus your bad negative deeds. If the good is lacking, you got to get moving. Okay, you can volunteer, so do some volunteering. asking and doing what's necessary to receive the divine forgiveness. That comes with when you're doing meditation, or if you're doing yoga, or you're doing prayer, you know. If acts were done to someone else, you want to ask for forgiveness, get on that road. And also, I have a podcast for forgiveness, Your Road to Forgiveness. I think I published that back in February, right? So you might want to go back and check on that. Your Road to Forgiveness was, by the way, to give you a head up, I plan to do another Road to Forgiveness Part 3 this season too. So at any rate, you want to do that. So you want to ask, in the sense, sometimes you just got to ask it out loud and you will receive. It's that old saying, when the student is ready, the master will appear. And the master just means it could be anything or anybody coming through on the spiritual plane to show you where you need to be, to give you your next level, to give you the answer that you seek. So with this, your task to Dusk to Dawn is basically to sit down and you look at the good deeds versus your bad deeds. And if the good is lacking, when you're doing more bad and negative than the good, then that's where we at. That's why the joy level is depleted. Your joyfulness in your heart. So you got to flip that and start doing the good things, and do it from your heart, not just you trying to get something out of it. Okay? Today you need to look at that. I'm saying when you do something for another person without thinking of the return that you're giving, and you give, and you cease the bad deeds on the side, right? You can't do a little bit of bad, a little bit of negative on the side, kick, and thinking all that. No, you kick those bad negative deeds to the curb and you run to get your inner joy. All right, so your motivation takeaway today for your podcast for this episode is basically, with the right outlook and self-uplifting, anything is possible, right? To move forward with the good of life. For the circle of life, our good deeds blossoms into the joyfulness we seek to sustain our mental peace while on our life's journey. Thank you. Thank you again for joining me for my podcast episode from my podcast show, Surviving Your Journey to Success, just to give you some information to not only stay in contact, but with the other things that I offer. I provide career consultation, offering the first 30 minutes are free. Thereafter, there is a fee access afterwards per hour and can be discussed on a case-by-case basis, depending on your need. So if it is an emergency and you need some consultation regarding your career or choices that you're about to make moving forward, in a sense, in your personal type objectives, then you can definitely contact me. The primary way to contact me is by email, which is info@nichelanderson.com. Now, I do have a toll-free number on my website. Now, that is actually only for webinars, when I'm doing like a free webinar and you're calling in. Once that number is through that medium, and it's only really for that, so it's not really connected to me directly. Now, I am working on that, but for right now it's not really, and when that changes, you would definitely get a notice of that to go forward. So just to recap, my primary way is info@nichelanderson.com. All right, so the other thing I want to share with you is that I also provide business courses and self-improvement courses. So that overall objective is to help you to create strategies that work for you, to get you motivated, to identify the ways to get your or keep your joy and your mental peace. So I do provide that on the basis of your objective to gain success, and as I like to say, sustain success. You can find information on my courses that I release on my official website, which is www.nichelanderson.com, and you can go there and you can look at the different courses that I am releasing that are available. These courses are self-paced. They will be identified if they're considered to be like live sessions on a regular basis, but for the most part they are self-paced. During that time, I do have live sessions that once you have signed up for the course, you will see that in the schedule of what days that I'm available live, that you can talk to me and we can go over the courses going forward, right, on those particular topics. So that information is basically on my website that you can go to, which is nichelanderson.com. Now, I want to do a special call out for listeners that I have seen in my stats that are following me, continue to follow me, which I am thankful for. Now, to get connected more, to stay connected, I'm asking you to consider to join my newsletter that I do send out. And to do that, you just have to submit, of course, your name and your email. I don't spam. You can always request to be taken off the list. I don't send thousands of emails because I don't like thousands of emails from a particular source. So I keep it very in a way that's informative, of course, because obviously you like the content because you hear and you enjoy it and you're getting something from it, which pleases me. To expand that and to move forward and to get into other ways that I can expand what I'm trying to do is to form a newsletter to get that set up in the sense that I'm communicating that I can send that out more quickly, actually, through a podcast or any type of thing or production that I'm doing, where a newsletter is more, in the sense, faster to get that contact and to send it out on blast, right? And more opportunity to send more content compared to like social media characters to be able to get that message out. So do consider that to join my newsletter by providing, and you can find that link at the end of each episode. I have that link to basically to sign up here for Nichel E-List Tips newsletter. And you could do that and you can see that and click, and it's a short form, online form. It is secured and you can complete that. All right, the other thing I want to talk about is basically to subscribe to this podcast. If you haven't, please go ahead. Of course, this is going through Podbeam. I have 2 podcasts. This one, of course, you're listening to is Surviving Your Journey to Success. And you can subscribe. Of course, you should see the subscribe button here at the bottom of this episode or at the top, whichever device that you're using. Now, I'm also available on iHeartRadio, on Spotify, on Google Play, on iTunes, and any other podcast directories for feed distribution. You can connect that way and subscribe, and if you like it, share it. Now, I am on social media, and so you do hear me a lot talk about Twitter. I'm mostly active on Twitter. I'm also active on Facebook. For the most part right now is Twitter, and I like the whole concept of keeping it short and sweet, but I'm connecting to people in different parts of the world. And then Facebook, I'm definitely on there as well, and you can connect me with that. So my Twitter handle is basically twitter.com/Nichel Anderson. My Facebook page, facebook.com/Nichel Anderson fan page. My official website, as I mentioned earlier, is nichelanderson.com. That is my official website. It's mainly focusing on self-improvement, motivation, life coaching, leadership courses, things that I really love to help people, what I have learned, and also to connect and to try to create the content in a way that you can feel comfortable about it, open up about the areas where you're struggling at. And it's usually pretty much our career and our personal life. So these self-paced courses give you the opportunity to really think things out, because you got to think about it. In this world, our mind has to be able to process so many things in so little time. And so you're here, you're there, you're everywhere, and you don't really get the opportunity to stop, to think, to react in a way that moves you forward, and to get things done, to get a blueprint. And that's basically the 2 courses that I recently released, and I will continue to evolve from that and add more courses, of course, or redo some of the courses that I have. And Blueprint for Success is a very good one in the sense of identifying that and moving to a point that you have a plan and that you can move forward, and that's the key. So at any rate, check that out on my official website, and definitely connect with that and share it with somebody else. Now, the other thing I would like to share with you is that, of course, I am an author, and so my very first book that I got published, that I was called to do, it was my purpose, and I see it now, and it's a part of my whole podcast show title. It's called Corporate America: Surviving Your Journey Toward Success. It is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. It's available in book form and ebook. Okay, so you can get it at any book retailer in the world that have access to the ISBN for each book. So you can get that, and you can download it, or you can purchase it, or what have you. But go ahead and check out my book, and if you like it, share it. okay? And that was basically given to me to do. And immediately I felt that I could help college students. I recently had got out of college and I was like, I can help students. I mean, I didn't know the politics of corporate America. And over time, I even got better at understanding the dynamics and the politics of that. And it's very, very important. So if you do know someone that's in college, you got to get them this book, okay? If you're already in corporate America and you're out of college, you still need to get the book or recommend it to somebody. The book was a blessing because a few years later, after I was called to do it, and it was part of my whole purpose journey, a few years later I got contacted by Essence magazine, which people in the States definitely know that's a major magazine. And I used to love purchasing that magazine. And when I was in high school, and I just loved all the articles. And I never would have dreamed that one day, if I continue on the road and continue on the journey, that my name, something that I created, would be inside a magazine. Isn't that powerful? Where it was for me. And someone got a hold of it. And make it so bad, I had limited resources to promote it. But somebody was at the right spot, you hear me, at the right time to have the connection, right? And I'm talking about where I lived. Wasn't a big, famous, big city with, so many powerful people. I wouldn't say not powerful people, but let's just say it was considered a halfway mid-range small town. Not a small town, but you know what I'm trying to say. And I had no idea that he could get to one person, and that person liked it, led to Essence magazine, okay? Called me and said they loved it and they wanted to feature it and make it what they call the corporate climber Bible to succeed. Isn't that something? So that's why you have to identify your purpose and identify your reason, struggles, and move forward, and it will get you to your meant to be. It will get you to the blessings that will come to you if you stay on focus and stay on the journey and keep hope alive, because bigger things are yet to come. So let me also just recap on my podcast, and we are going to wrap this up where my aim to connect to you is that the regular podcasts are podcast every Monday at 10 a.m. And sometimes I have bonuses and I do release that. So, but just to recap, please go to either my website, my official website, or to my Podbean podcast homepage here, NichelAnderson7.podbean, and subscribe and share it. And I also have my podcast show notes, and that will be posted on my Podbean homepage for this podcast. So do keep that in mind. Now, you can also get some content from my other podcast entitled Nichel Anderson Short Stories and Beyond. Now, with that, I do showcase my love of writing. So I tell stories and I focus on the productions of that into these short stories. And the goal is to also expand from that and create other new stories. Now, that particular podcast is considered premium content, so for the most part of the season, I release clippets of the actual short stories, and sometimes I actually release a short story. To get the full content of those clippets that I do release, it's a Patreon page that I have set up on Patreon, and that you can find the link to. So to get to that other particular podcast that I'm talking about, it is located on Spreaker, my other hosting site that I use to be able to distribute that particular podcast. You can find a direct link to that podcast show on my Podbean homepage. So once you go to my homepage here, you just look to the left and you'll see the menu of options of episodes and podcasts that I did, and you will see the reference to my other show, which is Nichel Anderson Short Stories and Beyond. Actually, if you're on one of these directories and you're looking me up, just put my name in there and you'll see my other podcast, and you could take a look at that. In my closing, I want to say thank you again for joining me today. Here is my closing statement for you. Be you that strengthens and inspires your ability to be strong in your journey endeavor. It's a good thing towards your mental peace and joy, always to your success.